So thank you for joining us today. We're having our CTT session for the district on our disaster response committee. And Gary Christie is the chair of that committee. Gary is a member of the Lynchburg Morning Club. He is a past assistant governor for the district and was a past club president in another district, a neighboring district, the Richmond district, District 7600. And he's put together a great team and a great presentation today. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kathy. Good everybody. And I'm going to introduce speakers, and you can ask questions during the presentations. Look forward to our presentation tonight. First one will be John Elrick, Manchester Rotary Club. He's a life entrepreneur who started his first business in the personal computer consultant. He's built 7 businesses from software training to software development, and he holds elect at the Winchester Rotary, who will celebrate their 100th anniversary during John's term.
All right, hello everybody. My name is John Elrick. I'm with Winchester Rotary. In 21 days, I'm going to be saddled with the job of president. As Gary indicated, my career is checkered. I founded 7 different businesses in my lifetime. Currently, I'm working with Westat, which is a research firm out of Rockville, Maryland. Today's presentation, share screen, is all right. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Sure.
All right, emergency response. This is a presentation I gave the Winchester Rotary Club. I gave an earlier presentation to the Disaster Response Committee that was similar, but here is my overarching evil plan. In the wake of the start of the pandemic era, we have an emerging need, I believe, in Rotary, and especially in the Rotary clubs, to be able to engage with our local community, especially the emergency response and the emergency healthcare providers in a more efficient way than we saw in the past. So the overall background of why this committee is being formed, this started right before COVID with what was called the HEARTS program, Help Educate All Rotarians to Serve, started by C.N. Davis with Warren County. The initial launch was in March of 2020 with basic life support training. And the idea was to train Rotarians in CPR so that they would be able to help people who had some kind of a cardiac condition during the course of a meeting or while they were at work. I decided to go ahead and do this after hearing about it from CN in a presentation. And within a few days of my agreeing to do that, my brother-in-law, who had just received CPR training in Ohio at PPG where he works, stepped out of his office. The person in the office next to him stepped out in the hallway and dropped to the ground. And so my brother-in-law was on him doing CPR and saved his life. So I thought it was a very good idea for us to start pushing for this. And I was one of the ones going in the March 2020. And then came COVID. COVID was first reported to WHO back on January 1st. That's whenever the first inklings that we had something going on. It hit the United States, and by the end of March, we had national shutdowns. Those national shutdowns, as you all are very painfully aware, affected Rotary clubs like mad. We spent the entire first section of the year trying to figure out exactly how we were going to meet and what we could do to respond. Back in January of 2021, I contacted a friend of mine, Colin Green, who is the director of the Lord Fairfax Health District, and asked him if he needed anything from Rotary. This was not the first time I had offered, but it was the first time he responded. And he said we needed some volunteers to help out. He said also he needed space, and I managed to find him 3 possible locations to carry out vaccinations within 24 hours. Events overtook it. I don't think he ever was able to make use of them, but we were able to respond very quickly just by reaching out to Rotarians saying, does anybody have any space available? But he also told me about an organization that I didn't even know existed. This was the Virginia Medical Reserve Corps. Now there's a Medical Reserve Corps in every state. And basically these Reserve Corps are set up so that people can volunteer for them. They act as local assets. It's fully voluntary. They get online training, and based upon your skill set, whether or not you have medical background or other types of backgrounds, they can make use of that person as a volunteer whenever an emergency arises. Prior to COVID, the Virginia Medical Reserve Corps apparently had been downsized somewhat. It had not been needed for some time. When COVID hit and the vaccination started to hit, it had to ramp up very, very rapidly. I do know that Virginia had a huge number of volunteers and a surge for the Medical Reserve Corps to help out volunteering at various sites. The nice part about this is if we combine these two concepts together, where we get Rotarians training in life support or basic life support, plus the Medical Reserve Corps, they will be ready to respond to emergencies in the future. Knock on wood, we won't have any, but I don't think the wood's going to help us. The big thing is because they're life support ready, according to my wife, who is in the healthcare system, was in charge of the vaccine distributions, they can do some higher level response work. One of the key things that turned up during the vaccination clinics was post-vaccination observers. If you've had your vaccine, you know you got your shot, you headed towards the door, and they told you to sit down for 15 minutes. That was to see if there was any kind of adverse reactions that kicked up. And fortunately, we never had any, but you have to have somebody standing by, observing in case something goes wrong. And if you're trained in life support, you can be in that position. That frees up medical personnel to do jobs that we're not qualified to do. So the combination seemed to be a good idea to start putting into place. I wanted to propose it district-wide, that initiative begin at the very least to start encouraging Rotarians to both join the MRC, which is a completely painless process, by the way, and to also, if possible, get training in CPR, possibly through the Hearts program or through their locals, through a local center. The main point is that by having those partnerships already in place from Hearts with the Medical Reserve Corps and having all of these things already in place, CN already arranged for all the training to take place, we could have a cadre of Rotarians very quickly who would be ready and able to respond to emergencies when they turned up. They would already be familiar with the processes and procedures through their training with the Medical Reserve Corps, be relatively completely painless. I signed up for the Reserve Corps. It took 10 minutes to sign up. Within 3 weeks, I got a response saying, surprise, you're accepted. And then it was a matter of a couple of online training, mostly just to get you ready for, again, the processes and procedures that you would be following, and also to make you aware of volunteer opportunities. So my plans for 2021 are to set up the Winchester Rotary Emergency Response Committee. And this Emergency Response Committee will be encouraging CPR training, encouraging applications to the MRC. Also, there's some additional programs that are becoming available. One's called Revive, which deals with Narcan and Narcan administration training. But the main core purpose of this committee will be to build up relationships with Valley Health Systems, with the Medical Reserve Corps directly, and with the Virginia Department of Health. And this is where we get into the little thing that annoyed the heck out of me, which is what led me to want to create this committee. Back whenever this was really kicking up in the August timeframe, I arranged for the new CEO of Winchester Medical Center, Mark Nance, to speak to our club, and he did. I arranged for Colin Green, the director of the Virginia Health District to speak to our club. He did. I arranged for Nick Restrepo, who is one of the key people on the safety calls and the administration of coordination within Valley Health, to speak to our club, and he did. And at each particular point, I made very well known the fact that Winchester Rotary was here, and if they needed anything, just contact us. And after the August time frame, I heard crickets, absolute silence. And this is with my wife working inside of the system. And I began to realize very quickly that there was a complete and total breakdown between the healthcare providers and the community. They weren't sure who to reach out to. And we're sitting on top of a club that on a good day, as I said, we've got easily $100 million in the room, and we've easily representing 10,000 employees across the entire area. And nobody reached out to us until I really started pulling hard. In a sense, this was kind of an indication to me that Rotary was becoming not well known within the critical sectors of the community. And so it was time to do something about that. So I asked the question, could Rotary start to become a hub by inserting ourselves, by creating a committee that can pull in the people we already have who are working with the Sinclair Medical Clinic. The man I'm thinking is going to be heading up the committee works with the Salvation Army. And we have other contacts and connections, including the Boy Scouts of America and the Chamber of Commerce. Nice little list here. And the idea is, can we put together a committee that starts the conversation before it's time to start the conversation? No huge amount of work involved. Just get the people that are already involved with these things together in the same room every once in a while. Once a month, once a quarter, for God's sake. Just enough that the next time we have a problem that hits, Rotary becomes a first thought to reach out to instead of, oh yeah, they exist. So that's the basic idea that I'm going to be putting into place at Winchester. It's a concept that I think that has the potential for some legs throughout the district. It's extremely low barrier of entry, extremely low pain. All we're asking is people to make use of their existing relationships, but build them up and make them a little bit more of a connected line into their own Rotary clubs. The resources that are out there, these will be in your slides. Cian Davis, who is a doctor, is the one who's behind, or one of the main key people behind the effort called Hearts to help do the training. And of course, the Medical Reserve Corps is available online. Again, easy to sign up for, very low pain. And the big thing is you'll be in the databases and you'll have the initial knowledge that'll enable you to hit the ground running should the need arise again. So we're going to jump to Q&A. Let's see if anybody's got me.
So I would have a question about, our district goes into Tennessee. I know you covered Virginia. So how would we incorporate the Tennessee clubs in that?
There is a Tennessee Medical Reserve Corps. If you check with the state of Tennessee, I believe there's a Medical Reserve Corps in every state in the United States of America.
Great.
So I'm going to put in a plug for the Hearts program. I was one of the first ones, along with John, to get trained. And it is a wonderful training. You learn so much, and it's textbook, but it's also hands-on, and it's a really good program. So if anybody else is interested in bringing that to your club, I would highly recommend it, and reach out to Cian Davis. She would be happy to give you the information that she has. We actually had an organization that donated equipment to us to get that going, which was fantastic. We got the dummies that we practiced on and other equipment as well too. So it was a great opportunity.
Now, I'll plug in there that Winchester Rotary had an anonymous donor that helped pay for a lot of stuff, a couple $1,000 worth of stuff, because they were so excited about the idea.
John, presentation.
Okay.
Quinn, you introduce yourself.
Anyways, good evening. Thank you for having me involved with this committee and meeting. And I'm Quinn Mongan. I'm with Rotary Club here in Salem. I'm basically involved with this disaster response committee. I'm an owner of a CERPRO for 22 years. So I've been dealing with some disaster responses for them. Prior to that, I was in environmental work, both for the state and for corporations. 13 years with Rotary, but just a member, a lot of committees and chairs. There were any other positions. The Rotary Club of Salem had a foresight a few years ago by Danny Hall, Bill, and June Long. I think they're on the district committees. Established a committee here in our club, and the first things we did was prepare what we call muck out buckets, used in event of some natural disasters, and later date developed some tarp kits to cover roofs, doors, and windows. This is our committee. We're a committee, we don't do much with the traveling or anything of that nature. I know some people have talked about that. Our committee here, again, we have 7 of us and try to get our buckets prepared and keep them up to date and communicate with the club. Our muck out buckets that we came up with have these contents: a general cleaning solution, like a pine saw. You have towels, dust mask, and they were dust masks, not really N95s or anything, as we all learned a lot about here this past year. Rubber gloves, some protective gloves, trash bags, dishwashing soaps. And then that's all comes in the bucket. And then outside the bucket, Danny Hall arranged with a local company, Kick, who produces bleach. And they will then, where we can request them at the time to donate the bleach and either get it shipped or bring it to us to ship somewhere. I think last time they brought them to our warehouse and we shipped them to their first event. We also give a broom with a dustpan and a mop. So it's that general cleaning, especially in a flooding situation, someone would need just to clean out the mud and the debris. This is a picture of inside. This is what we have in the bucket. You can see there. Then we developed the tarping kits. Tarp kits, we have 20 of them at this time. They contain 20 by 20s. It's mainly to cover roofs that people need. The other ones we have are the 5 smaller top tarps, which can cover doors and windows. Also, the kits include some nail strips to nail these down with, and hammers and gloves, and some nails. So today we've had some experiences with the buckets. It's interesting. Sometimes it's hard to give things away. It's great to have a platform such as this to get it throughout our system that we have the buckets. So anybody can request them. We like to help out the communities around us. So the first event we had was Hurricane Sandy, and again, we had a trouble finding an endpoint receiver to distribute. So they loaded a truck with our supplies and some bleach, and it went north. And nobody's real sure where it went, but it went north, hopefully help someone out. So again, it was a real learning experience. And now what we do like to have is somebody, preferably another Rotarian, living by the 4-way test to receive things. The second event we had that we did get to utilize our supplies was a microburst. If anybody's familiar with those, it just happens over a small little area and it gets a lot of rain at one time. It's been amazing how those things work. It was in Southwest Virginia. It was in Floyd County. This time we had a Montgomery County Rotarian that I knew that notified me of the need in Rotary with the flooding in Floyd. So it took 2 clubs, 3 clubs working together was great. we took a van full, took the supplies up to the Floyd County Rotary Club, put them in somebody's office that had an office up there for them to distribute out to the community as they needed. And it was great just meeting the other Rotarians and helping them help their community. The third event was kind of a different one, emergency one, and I like hearing as John was talking, something a little outside the box, an emergency type of ideas and things for our committees to do. This one was a little different than storm or natural disaster. We had the COVID 2020, and our current president, he discovered our Salem VA Medical Center was in need of masks and rubber gloves. And it was real early in the pandemic because it was even a discussion of dust masks. Did masks do any good or not? So it was a lot further down the road. We found out it was better to have the dust mask than no mask, maybe. So anyways, but no debate. I met up with a PA over there, and we distributed the 200 masks, I think 500 pairs of gloves to help out the local VA here in Salem. This is just a picture. This is the back end of the truck that loaded a pallet of these buckets. I think it was 14 or 20, and then the mops and brooms go with them, and delivered them up to Floyd County. That's the club members at Floyd County's office where they were placed, and they were going to distribute them out to their community as needed. Here's a picture. You say made reason to go up there, have lunch with another club I've never visited before. And that's John Tuttle from the Montgomery Rotary Club. And I forget that's the president at the time, which has been a few years, of Floyd County. So we took those supplies up and actually had lunch when we delivered them to them. This is where we did the COVID. So what it did was I went in and started to check the buckets and removed out the gloves, the rubber gloves and the dust masks from all our buckets, which again gave us 200 masks and 500 pairs of gloves. And I put them in these 6 buckets you see here. Met this person from the Salem VA Center in the parking lot at the post office in Salem and made the exchange. Kind of a strange thing. But they were very thankful for those because it was early in the pandemic, a lot of chaos, but at least we gave them some good things to help protect. Many of the veterans and people were visiting, needing medical treatment, didn't have any mask or anything to put on to cover their face whatsoever. It is predicted we'll possibly expect more storms in the future, they're saying. So I've heard they may expand hurricane season. It's good again to have this opportunity so we can network more, larger scale teamwork gets more things done. And like I say, we were just here, we have buckets. We like everybody to know we have buckets and tarps, so we'd be able to help deliver them to your community. Again, we don't have much on the size for the team that we have to come out and do much of the cleaning or put the tarps on the roof, but we have the supplies that we can get to people if they should need. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Quinn, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Typically, how much does a bucket cost your club to put together?
You know, I don't know. They've done such a good job at getting things donated. We at ServPro donated a few of the masks and gloves and towels. It's not a whole lot. We usually get about 50 to 100 buckets to have on stash, you know, in reserve. We have some at one of our warehouses, then we have another member that has the tarp kits stored at their warehouse.
Great. I was going to ask you where you store them. Yeah.
Some of those are dollar products, but usually our team is really good at asking for the donations. So most of it is donated goods that go into the buckets.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, could you go back to the contents of the bucket?
The visual or this one?
Yep. Very neat. I took a screenshot.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea and something that everyone could use if they have a flood. That's fantastic.
it was a great idea they came up with. So if anybody should need any or think they have a need, let us know. We'd love to deliver them to you and let you hand them out to the community.
Well done.
Neighbor Clerk, good evening. You take
Good evening and greetings from Southwest Virginia.
Tackle yours next.
Well, as you heard two totally different approaches to serving the responding to disaster. When a disaster happens, everybody wants, lots of people want to help. So the problem is, and the reason is that, volunteerism is a part of our culture. And if you look, you see some of the reasons, and you know what? It looks just like why some people join Rotary. But it's a way to make a difference. But what I'd like to talk about, and I didn't go ahead, let me give you a little bit of my background. I spent 34 years as a public safety practitioner. I started out as a deputy sheriff, and I was an emergency management coordinator. And I ran an emergency, and 911 center for 17 years. And as if I didn't have enough excitement in my life, I was a volunteer firefighter and EMT for 22 of those 34 years. Well, I retired from the public sector and joined a communications engineering consulting firm. I moved to Lynchburg. I've been president of 2 different Rotary clubs, as you've heard. So I've only been a member of Rotary for about 34 years. So anyway, most people want to get involved for all the right reasons. Unfortunately, there are always a few who have alternative motives that come in, want to do a scam, create a scam, and so on and so forth. So that obviously creates a problem. There are various types of volunteers. There are the professional volunteers, those who are trained, such as your firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors, and so on, who can volunteer in their professional capacity. Then you have those who have no special skills for use in disaster. And you have those that just show up spontaneously, who have no affiliation, they aren't involved with anybody. And the challenge becomes, how do they effectively get integrated into the organization? The key to it is, wrong way. The key is to make contact with your local government before the fat hits the fire. Help. Get involved, let them to know you, get to know you, get some training that I'll talk about in a minute. Get familiar with the NIMS, or the National Incident Management System. This was developed essentially by the Forest Service and the Department of the Interior, dealing with the large wildfires they have out in the West. But then the fire department, or the fire service, saw the value of creating what's known as an incident command system that I'll talk about in a little bit. The part of NIMS, as you see, it provides guides for all levels, and it's a consistent framework. One of the things that I found in my consulting career, I did projects in more than 20 states and 3 foreign countries. There are a lot of significant differences in the way governments and organizations function depending on the location. The NIMS provides a consistent framework for things to make it work. remember that incidents begin and end locally. They are initially a local response. When they get overwhelmed, state and federal resources come in to help. But then as things phase down, it goes back to being the locality's responsibility. With NIMS, it's a scalable system. Again, the standardization is essential and means that the efforts are coordinated between the organizations to achieve common objectives. For nonprofits such as Rotary, you need to designate and maintain a point of contact to serve as the principal coordinator. Participate in exercises so that it's not a new experience. Everybody is familiar with how the system works and they're familiar with each other. You will see when I talk about the instant command system, one of the things the fire service learned from experience, and were less than wonderful, but they implement the instant command system on every incident. Again, because it's scalable, it might just be the first arriving unit is all that's implemented on it. They have command. But as it escalates, more resources are brought in. And you need to get your people identified with how much training they have, what their experience is, what's their physical fitness, and what's their medical fitness. In other words, if you look at Rotary, we have a lot of senior citizens who are members. You wouldn't expect them to go out and spend 16 hours filling sandbags and so on. What can they do? And you need to identify that ahead of time. You need to keep an inventory of what you have, use the standard system to manage the asset and coordinate. One of the things that I get concerned with when you see a disaster happen, there are a number of organizations that mean very well, but they'll send all sorts of stuff that really isn't necessary. For example, there are a lot of people that want to send clothing, used clothing and so on, that basically ends up being disposed of because it's not needed or not used. As I said with the instant command system, it's effective command and control and coordination, saves lives and stabilizes the group. The ICS enables effective, accessible, and efficient incident management by integrating all of this. Again, it's flexible, scalable. And here's some training that's available for free, all online training. And if you're going to get involved, you need to go through these, at least the first 3 courses, preferably all 4, ahead of time, so that you know how the system works and how you fit into it. And with that, are there any questions?
Is this training something that you'd recommend a Rotary Club to take on, or is it more of an individual participation?
It's more of an individual participation.
But a Rotary Club could help suggest getting people involved in this?
Encourage, yeah, because it's basically a correspondence course. They're not very
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Nate.
The best, make sure you do things and don't wait for the plan. Patrick Adjua from welcome. We're glad you're here and for joining us. Introduce yourself to the group, screen and start your presentation.
Thank you, fellow Rotarians. It's quite an opportunity and for me to join you this evening. I'm from Mandeville, Jamaica, part of our district 7020. I spent at least 25 years in Rotary service. And I'm also currently serving as the district foundation chair, a cadre to the Rotary Foundation trustees. So I get to travel a lot doing project reviews in different territories. I'll give you an insight as to what we do in our district. Our district is unique, very unique district. We have 10 countries, 11 islands of the Caribbean. Trade language is French, Dutch, and English. And disaster to us is something we look for every year. It affects almost every territory in sequence. This year it comes to Jamaica, next year we expect it to be in Haiti, the next year it happens somewhere else. So what really is disaster to us? Are you still seeing the screen? Are we seeing the screen?
Yes, we're seeing it fine, thank you.
All right, and so disaster is a serious destruction occurring over a short or long period of time. And usually, you have widespread human, material, economic, and environmental loss, which exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope using its own resources. And that happens to us frequently. Most times when it does occur in a territory in our district, they're not able to cope. These are the countries we have as part of our district. We have 88 clubs currently with a membership of 2,582. The Bahamas, except the Grand Bahama, is in our district. The Grand Bahama is with the US district. All right. When we do have a disaster, the first approach is to get the public sensitized.
There's bodies everywhere, hidden in buildings, hidden in debris. We got body recovery teams, looters, just going crazy.
Dorian was a totally different animal. This is the worst hurricane in history with the most destruction ever.
In stark reality, like I've never seen anything like it. Total destruction.
Just to see, like, there was a church there. There was a building there. There's just, as you turn it, just your eyes is just like, what?
Me and my baby, everyone that stay in the apartment building, we stuck right here. Please pray for us.
We saw the need to just come together and to try to figure out what to do.
Then the next day was when donations really started coming in. Rotary's connections in the community are, much more far spread than I think any other entities in the country.
Fishermen, they are grateful, man. What can I say, man? Thumbs up.
Somebody put me on your list. So it only could be the Lord put it in somebody's heart that I get help.
Rotary is committed to this for the long haul. We'll be the last ones leaving because we know the job has been finished and the Abacos and Grand Bahama are back as the islands that we are all so very proud of.
I'm proud to be a Rotarian.
So from this video, you can see we are used to getting this on a regular basis. Now in my district, the chief officer is our district governor who, in a situation like this, convenes a disaster committee to respond to the issue. Each territory has a district disaster preparedness chair that belongs to that committee also. The district governors elect a nominee because we're looking at this might take more than 1 year to resolve. So we try to make sure that all the string of governors are involved in the decision making. We also insist on having 2 past governors who have experience in accounting and audit. Because when donors donate their funds, they expect us to have transparency and proper stewardship. Another organization that really helps us a lot is the DNA RAB, the Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group. They are very versed on disaster, and we always have them on our committees. The reason also being they have a 501c3 account in the US that they're able to use to support our district. All the area governors of the affected areas act as liaisons to collect and channel all the information to the committee. What is the approach? There are 3 ways we deal with disaster in our district. The immediate response, where the local clubs and partners immediately offer helping hands and supplies. And we start telethons immediately. Because through telethons, we raise funds quickly, more than you can really imagine. Then there's a short-term approach where the clubs and the district help affected communities wherever we can through the funds we have. In this short term, sometimes there's a facility available through the Rotary Foundation, the disaster response grant, that you get up to $25,000 for each grant, and you can apply for more as long as you report and close the previous one. So we use this a lot. Then the long-term rebuilding, that is where the problem is. Because most areas, the entire homes of families are lost. And so we set up GoFund facilities for people, friends, and families overseas to give funds to the district. I want to share with you what happened after Dorian in September 2019. 7 to 24 months post this storm, we had at least $245,000 spent on those areas: Abaco, Litra, Spanish Wells, and the New Providence. Now Abaco, people are just going back to Abaco now. So most of what was done with that was to give them immediate supplies. Then the rebuilding process, the home restoration, the boat business for the fishermen in Grand Bahama and Abaco. We got a disaster grant of $132,000 to support that process. And we got in total $1.9 million spending in that area. Then for Abaco and New Providence, we got $137,500 towards the preparedness for that area. And if you know, New Providence is the area that is the capital of the Bahamas, Nassau. And we currently have projects in development worth 2-point-something million. So it's a huge problem when we do have disaster. And so we prepare for it as if it has happened already. So we are always on the go, looking for something to happen. That is the more I want to share with you. Any questions? Any questions?
Dr. Patrick, I have a question. I know, your district and the other districts in the Caribbean are in our sister zone. And a lot of us have been to those islands. I personally have been to Abaco. Was a beautiful island.
I went to Abaco as governor in 2018, 2019, and left Abaco 2 weeks just before the hurricane.
Wow, wow. Well, I know when these disasters hit the islands, our district wants to help, and we're not sure where to go. So who should we connect with, and where should we go?
The very first thing you do is to find out who is the governor for the district.
Okay.
And you contact him, and he has classmates from your territory that will.
Oh yes, yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then and we make sure that your funds are accounted for.
Okay.
It's a very serious thing that we look at it seriously, and because of that, we have 2 past governors who are accountants. and auditors who sit on the committee, and they control the funds along with the DNA RAG committee.
Great.
So there's transparency.
Yeah. So are funds the best thing to send or supplies?
It depends on what we want at the particular time. For example, after the hurricane in Abaco, we got a lot of supplies from Florida, a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. It depends.
Okay. So when we contact your district governor, they'll let us know what's needed.
And you'll have the proper needs assessment.
Okay.
We don't really want money going all over the place without accounting for it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you too.
I just want to thank you all for participating together. This has been very informative, really has been. Thank you so much. Gary, thank you for your committee and their hard work and for giving us ideas about what we can do to be ready when we need to help in a disaster. Thank you all.